To understand what happened in the first week of August 1944, you have to understand what the Germans called the Geheimschreiber, the secret writer. Most people know Enigma. Enigma was for divisional traffic, ship-to-ship orders, Luftwaffe weather reports. Enigma was the workhorse, but Hitler's strategic communications, the orders that moved entire army groups, the directives that decided the fate of nations, those did not travel on Enigma. They traveled on the Lawrence SZ-40 and SZ-42 cipher machines. The Lawrence was a teleprinter attachment. It used 12 rotor wheels with 501 different pin positions, generating a pseudorandom key stream that was added to the message character by character. The total number of possible starting positions was 1.6 quintillion. That is not a typo. 16 followed by 18 zeros. The Germans called the network Sedgefish, sawfish. The British codebreakers at Bletchley Park called it Tunny. And for most of 1941, Tunny was untouchable. Then on the 30th of August, 1941, a German operator on the Athens to Vienna circuit made a single fatal mistake. He sent a 4,000-character message, received a request to repeat it, and resent the same message using the same wheel settings, but with minor abbreviations the second time. 2 messages, same key, slightly different text. That mistake landed on the desk of Brigadier John Tiltman, the British Army's chief cryptographer. Tiltman extracted both plaintexts in 10 days. He handed the results to a 23-year-old chemist turned mathematician named William Thomas Tutt. Bill Tutt stared at the intercepts for 3 months. Then, working with nothing but pencil and squared paper, he reconstructed the entire internal structure of a machine he had never seen. Tutt's breakthrough is considered by many historians to be the greatest intellectual feat of the entire war. But theory was not enough. To read Tunny in real time, Bletchley needed something that did not yet exist. They needed a computer. Stay with me, because what Tommy Flowers built next defied every rule of engineering in 1943, and what it would decode in the summer of 1944 changed the war. By August 1944, Bletchley Park's Newmanry section was running 10 Colossus machines, the world's first programmable electronic computers, built in secret by a post office engineer named Tommy Flowers, using 1,500 vacuum tubes per unit when conventional engineers said the tubes would fail in hours. They did not fail. Colossus could read German strategic traffic, on a good day, within hours of interception. On the 1st of August, 1944, General George S. Patton's Third Army was activated. Within 48 hours, his tanks had broken out of the Cotentin Peninsula and were racing south. The German 7th Army, commanded by SS Obergruppenführer Paul Hauser, was being torn apart. Field Marshal Gunther von Kluge, commanding Army Group B, requested permission to withdraw east of the Seine. Hitler refused. On the 2nd of August, Hitler transmitted a personal directive to von Kluge over the Strasbourg-Berlin Tunny link. The order was codenamed Unternehmen Lüttich, Operation Liege. 4 panzer divisions, the 1st SS Leibstandarte, the 2nd SS Das Reich, the 2nd Panzer, and the 116th Panzer, under General Hans von Funk's XLVII Panzer Corps, would attack westward from Mortain. The objective, punch through to Avranches, cut Patton's army in half, and trap 120,000 Americans south of the Gap with no fuel and no resupply. The attack was set for the night of August 6th to 7th. The Tunny intercept hit Bletchley Park on the 3rd of August. Colossus No. 2 ran the wheel setting analysis through the night. By dawn on the 4th, the message was decrypted. By the afternoon of the 4th, the decoded text, designated Ultra Signal BT-7898, was on its way through the rigid security pipeline to SHAEF headquarters. By the night of the 6th of August, less than 72 hours after Hitler typed the order, General Omar Bradley, commanding the U.S. 12th Army Group, knew the exact divisions, the exact axis of attack, the exact start time, and the exact objective. Bradley had a problem and a gift. The problem was that Hitler's plan, if it succeeded, would be a catastrophe. The gift was that he now had 36 hours to prepare for an attack the Germans believed would be a surprise. Here is what the history books often leave out. Bradley could not move the line. If he reinforced Mortain visibly, German signals intelligence would notice, and the Germans would realize their cipher was compromised. The entire Ultra program, every decryption, every saved life, every operation already in motion would be lost. So Bradley did something extraordinary. He left Major General Leland Hobbs's 30th Infantry Division, the old Hickory Division, sitting at Mortain almost untouched. He told Hobbs nothing about the warning, and he waited. At 12:30 in the morning on August 7, 1944, the German assault began. 5 panzer divisions, supported by elements of the 17th SS Panzer Grenadier Division, smashed into the American line in fog and darkness. The 30th Infantry Division had no idea what was coming. but the men of the 2nd Battalion, 120th Infantry Regiment, about 700 soldiers under Lieutenant Colonel Eads Hardaway, held a piece of rocky high ground east of Mortain designated Hill 314. From that hill they could see every road the German tanks were using. They had a radio, they had artillery observers, and they began calling fire missions on the German spearheads within minutes of the attack. By dawn, Hill 314 was completely surrounded. The Germans demanded surrender. The Americans refused. For the next 6 days, those 700 men, eventually reduced to just over 300 effectives, held a position the German command considered tactically impossible. They ran out of food on the 2nd day. They ran out of medical supplies on the 3rd. The Army Air Force tried to airdrop plasma in artillery shells with parachutes. Most of the shells broke on impact. The men collected rainwater from shell craters and drank it through their teeth. Meanwhile, the ultra warning had reached one more commander. RAF Air Vice Marshal Harry Broadhurst's 83 Group and the U.S. 9th Air Force were positioned with hundreds of fighter bombers, Typhoons, P-47 Thunderbolts, rocket-armed Hurricanes, ready to strike at first light. When the fog lifted late on the morning of the 7th, the German armor was caught on open roads with no air cover. The Luftwaffe attempted to send 300 fighters to support the attack. Allied fighters intercepted them before they crossed the Seine. Not a single German aircraft reached Mortain. By the evening of August 7th, the panzer divisions had advanced less than 4 miles. By August 12th, they had not advanced at all. Hitler, refusing to accept failure, ordered Field Marshal von Kluge to keep attacking. Von Kluge, who privately knew the operation was finished, kept feeding divisions into the meat grinder. And that was exactly what Bradley wanted. Because while the entire German armored reserve was pinned at Mortain, Patton's Third Army was racing east, then north, in a giant arc around the German left flank. The trap that Hitler had built to destroy the Americans was about to close on his own army instead. On August 13th, Canadian First Army to the north and Patton's Third Army to the south were 40 miles apart, with the entire German 7th Army and 5th Panzer Army caught between them. The neck of the pocket near the town of Falaise was being squeezed shut. What followed was one of the most catastrophic defeats in the history of the German army. Between August 12th and August 21st, the Allies killed approximately 10,000 German soldiers, wounded another 50,000, and captured 50,000 more. The roads of the Falaise pocket were so choked with destroyed vehicles, dead horses, and bodies that Eisenhower, walking through it days later, said it was possible to traverse for hundreds of yards stepping only on dead flesh. 40 German divisions ceased to exist as functioning combat units. The defense of France was over. Within 25 days, Paris was liberated. Field Marshal von Kluge, knowing he would be blamed, took cyanide in his staff car on the road back to Germany on August 19, 1944. He left a letter addressed personally to Hitler. The letter blamed no one but pleaded for the Führer to end the war. Hitler did not. But here is what the men of the 30th Division did not learn until 1974. They did not learn it during the war. They did not learn it during the Cold War. For 30 years, the men who fought at Mortain, the survivors of Hill 314, the families of the dead, were never told that their stand had not been a desperate accident. They had been positioned in the path of Hitler's strongest counterattack because their commanding general knew it was coming and could not warn them without giving away the secret. 1,200 American casualties at Mortain bought the silence that protected Ultra. Bill Tutt never spoke about his work until the late 1990s. Tommy Flowers, the man who designed and built Colossus, was paid £1,000 by the British government after the war and ordered to destroy every blueprint of his machine. He spent the rest of his career at the post office, never able to mention what he had done. Hitler, in his bunker in 1945, ordered an investigation into how the Allies seemed to know his every move. The investigation concluded the Lawrence cipher was secure. The leak, the report determined, had to be coming from a traitor on his own staff. CTA 1213 Min. If you made it this far, you are exactly the kind of viewer this channel was built for, people who want the real names, the real units, the real decisions that turned battles. WarDossier publishes military history twice a week with the same level of detail and zero filler. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell so the next breakdown reaches you before the algorithm buries it. And drop a comment: was Bradley right to leave the 30th Division at Mortain without warning, or did he sacrifice American lives to protect a secret? I read every reply, and the best argument gets pinned. Outro 1315 Min. The lesson from Mortain is not about codes. It is about information. In every war that has ever been fought, the side that knew where the enemy was going to be, an hour earlier than the enemy knew himself, has won. The Lawrence cipher was not broken by a single weapon or a single spy. It was broken by a young mathematician with squared paper, an engineer with vacuum tubes, and a German operator who made one tired mistake on a teleprinter in Athens. Every commander in this story made decisions that cost lives. Bradley accepted casualties at Mortain to save an army. Hobbs sent the 120th Infantry to a hill they could not be told the truth about. Hardaway held that hill on rainwater and willpower. They are all gone now. The hill is still there. The German codes ended the war. The Lawrence machines were dismantled. The Colossus computers were broken up by order of Winston Churchill, who wanted no trace of them to survive, but the principle remained. The next time you hear about a cyber operation, a signals intercept, a leaked communique that decided a modern crisis, remember Mortain. Remember Hill 314. And if this one hit, my next breakdown is on the operation that came less than 4 months later, when Hitler launched his last great offensive in the dead of winter through the Ardennes forest, and Ultra missed it completely. That video is called The Bulge, and it will explain why the same intelligence system that destroyed an army at Falaise sat blind while 200,000 Germans massed for an attack nobody saw coming. See you in the next one. In August 1944, Adolf Hitler personally ordered Operation Luttich, a massive counterattack designed to cut Patton's Third Army in half at Avranches and trap 120,000 American soldiers in Normandy. He transmitted the order on the Lawrence SZ-42 cipher, the most sophisticated encryption system of the war, with 1.6 quintillion possible settings. Within 72 hours, code breakers at Bletchley Park, using the world's first programmable electronic computer, Colossus, designed by Tommy Flowers and built on the theoretical work of mathematician Bill Tutt, had decrypted the entire plan. This is the story of how that single decryption set up the Battle of Mortain, the heroic stand of the 30th Infantry Division on Hill 314 under Lt. Col. Eads Hardaway, and the destruction of the German 7th Army in the Falaise pocket. Featuring Field Marshal Gunther von Kluge, General Omar Bradley, General Hans von Funk, and the men whose sacrifice was kept secret for 50 years. 0000, the 48-hour decision 00. 30 why Hitler's code was different 03. 00 the 72-hour decrypt 06. 00 Hill 314 09. 00 Falaise and the 50-year silence 12. 00 subscribe 13. 00 the lesson and what comes next.